Now we were discussing the sixth step of the pathophysiology of the meningitis. It is the release of toxins. The effects of meningitis, namely inflammation within the subarachnoid space and the neurologic damage, are not a direct result of the pathogens themselves. This neurologic sequelae occurs owing to the activation of the host's inflammatory pathways. These inflammatory pathways are induced by the pathogens or their products. The bacterial cell death can cause release of cell wall components. It depends upon whether the organism is gram positive or gram negative. If the organisms are gram positive, they produces teichoic acid, lipoteichoic acid and peptidoglycan. And if the organisms are gram negative, they produces lipopolysaccharides, that is LPS, and lipid A, which is also known as endotoxin. Now our seventh step is the inflammatory response. These toxins, which are produced as the result of lysis of the bacterial cell wall, they can cause capillary endothelial cells and the CNS macrophages to release pro-inflammatory mediators such as cytokines, interleukin 1, TNF, other inflammatory mediators such as interleukin 6, interleukin 8, PAF, that is platelet activating factor, NO, nitric oxide species, arachidonic acid derivatives such as prostaglandin, prostacyclin, macrophage derived proteins, etc. So proteolytic products and these toxic oxygen radicals are released from the capillary endothelium. This can cause alterations in the permeability of the blood-brain barrier. So in this figure you can see the cascade of the reactions. So the platelet activating factor activates the coagulation cascade, whereas the arachidonic acid metabolites stimulate the vasodilation. So initially we told that the pro-inflammatory mediators such as interleukin 1, TNF and cytokines, they cause the arterial vasodilation, and this results in the increase in the blood flow to the brain because the blood is rich in antibiotics, complementary proteins and neutrophils. So our immune response tries to bring more of those defense components to the CSF. How this occurs, let us see. This TNF, which is produced as a result of these inflammatory reactions, causes interendothelial gap. So this TNF produces gap between the endothelial cells, and through this gap protein rich fluid, that is the fluid rich in antibodies, complementary proteins, neutrophils, are oozes out into the CSF. So this is also known as protein exudate. So as the vasodilation takes place, you can see a lot of proteins, complements, neutrophils in the CSF. So CSF becomes turbid and cloudy in nature. Before we told the CSF is crystal clear. Now its protein level and neutrophil levels are increased and it becomes turbid. So the CSF is rich in neutrophils. So now you may have the doubt that why these neutrophils can't kill the bacteria, right? These neutrophils are in CSF, right? CSF is having fluid nature and it is circulating. So the neutrophils can't phagocyte in CSF. Now the glucose level is also decreasing in the CSF. Already the glucose level in the CSF is less. That is in normal CSF we can see the glucose level as 1/2 or 2/3 of the peripheral blood glucose level. Whereas in case of CNS infection, that is in meningitis, again the glucose level is decreasing. That is our reactive immune cells takes up this glucose for their further metabolic activity, and some glucose is also taken up by the bacteria. So the total result is the decrease in the glucose. Initially this mediators, that means inflammatory mediators, helps in the vasodilation. But as the process continues, there is a lot of exudate oozes out, and this results in the swelling, that is vasogenic edema. So once the exudates are more, it causes the compression up. It causes the pressure on the blood vessels which supplies blood to the brain. So causes compression of the blood supply to the brain, and you can see all the infiltration of the neutrophils in the blood vessels. These two processes together causes further decrease to the further decrease of blood flow to the brain. This may eventually lead to ischemia, hypoxia, general damage to the brain, and in this condition, patient with meningitis develops fluctuating consciousness, altered mental sensorium, irritability, drowsiness, seizures, even coma can occur. When our vascular system is disturbed, that is the autoregulation of the blood supply to the brain is disturbed, brain initiates to swell. So you can see the swelling, you can see the brain starts to swell. So the main reason is the vasogenic edema, and also interstitial edema and cytotoxic edema brings swelling of the brain, and this finally leads to the increase in the intracranial pressure. So once the patient is suspecting, once we are suspecting the patient is having meningitis, we may take CSF for the culturing, right? So for that we have to do lumbar puncture, and before doing lumbar puncture we have to make sure that the intracranial pressure is not raised, otherwise that may lead to damage to the patient, and sometimes even death can occur. That's the pathophysiology of meningitis.